welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of August 2025. I hope you are well. I am using the Crow Tarot for you today, which is very nice because we haven't had it hasn't had an outing for a while. So things to tell you before the reading begins. If it resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the link in the description box that takes you to Selfie. Alternatively, you can come over to Circle and join us there. It's my private community. There you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost aside from the membership fee. You can also access all of the weekly energy readings that I do over there. And participate in the classes that we run. I run some live classes, but everything is recorded so you can work through it at your own pace, at your leisure, if you will. So with all of that out of the way, let's flip the camera and have a look and see what is going on with you, Capricorn. I think these are well shuffled enough. Let's have a look. Can I have 3 cards for Capricorn, please? There's the first one. We have the Fool in your recent past, which is very nice indeed. It's been coming out quite a lot for all the signs, actually. What about current energy? Wow. Okay, the Hanged Man. Interesting. And what's coming towards Capricorn, please, for August? There it is. We have Judgment. Holy shit, Capricorn. I think you might be the only sign in August that has had all major arcana cards. Can't swear to it, but I think you might be. We have the Knight of Swords at the bottom of the deck. Now, the Knight of Swords represents the sign of Gemini, and obviously, you know, reasons why Gemini would be talked about right now, aside from the fact that they're fabulously entertaining and actually, as a sign, seem to have gone through something really quite dramatic recently, is the fact that we are now in the first full month that Uranus is in the sign of Gemini. Now, Uranus is a very electric energy. It's sort of a little bit off and on, actually. It's not a consistent force, but it's an energy of innovation and breakthrough. There isn't a card in the tarot that represents the planet Uranus, but if there was, I think it would be the Tower. The Tower is not, generally speaking, a prolonged, consistent, sustained force, unless you happen to be me, right, in your life. It comes in, it brushes a lot of things out, and then you are left with the rubble and the detritus, and you have to try and work out how to put everything back together again, if indeed it needs putting back together, because sometimes it doesn't. It's a force for liberation, I think, is the way that I would describe it. Now, you put that in the sign of Gemini, which is obviously an air sign, very light, very sparky, very communicative, but predominantly concerned with the integration of multiple perspectives, right? This is a mutable sign. It's governing transition. What we're talking is about where Gemini is concerned is quite often the accumulation of information that leads to some sort of new perspective on something, right? Taking in all of the information that is available. Well, you put these two together, and what we have is, quite frankly, a force that is going to change the way that everybody thinks really quite dramatically over the course of the next 7 years. And I do feel like that energy is playing pretty hard on you right now, Capricorn, but in the best possible way. And I don't know why it would be specifically angled towards you at this point. I can't visualize the zodiacal wheel, so I can't see if it's doing something directly to Capricorn, but you certainly seem to be feeling the effects of it. What do we have under there? We have the Emperor underneath there, which is Aries energy, and of course Aries is being talked about quite a lot at the moment as well, what with all of all of these planets kind of moving over, but your ruling sign is in the sign of Aries, which means that whatever's going on in Aries has some, certainly has some sort of kickback effect on you. We're talking about the restructuring of reality, and I think this has been something you've been experiencing since December 2024. Initially in a sort of kicking things over kind of way, but now it seems like you are evolving, moving forwards at such a pace, it's almost like a breakneck speed. And then here we arrive in the month of August, and we have all major arcana. Now, if you don't understand how to differentiate major and minor arcana, I mean, obviously, like the Fool, the Hangman, Judgment, these are all major arcana cards, whereas these ones, the numbered cards and the court hierarchy cards, they're all given to be minor arcana. Well, it's not an arbitrary division, right? The division is that the major arcana represent forces that are at play on you at any given point, and they require some sort of response, right? They are initiating some sort of action. They're knocking things over. They're pushing you. They're sending you within. They're sending you without, right? That sort of thing. The responses come in the minor arcana. So anything that has a number, or anything that is, a knight, a king, a queen, whatever, these are minor arcana forces where it's within your wheelhouse to be able to do something about it, right? The actions that you take are represented by the minor arcana in response to these bigger energies. Sorry if I'm teaching you to suck eggs if you understand all of these things, but I do know that there will be some people watching who don't understand the difference between these things. So in a month where you have both your recent past, your current energy, and what's coming towards you being governed by major arcana forces, it's saying that a lot is changing, or a lot needs to change, but certainly a lot is in the process of changing. And actually we're seeing we see the story of that emerging here already. We'll get into what they mean individually in a moment, but there is a massive reorientation going on here, Capricorn, and certainly by the end of August, I feel like you're going to be making decisions that you didn't think in a million years you would be making. I feel like I've said things along that fucking line to you for 8 months now. 8 months. So let me give these a big shuffle, because I like to do that before we start reading. Nothing else, it gets a bit of air moving between the cards, and I feel like that's important. Anyway, tell me why the Fool is here, please. We have the Death card. More major arcana, just in case you weren't sure. Whoa, okay. We have the Strength card, and we have the 10 of Pentacles. Holy crap. Right, tell me about the Hanged Man, please. We have the 8 of Wands. Fucking hell. I've got the King of Swords has just come along. Let me go get it. But it's in the reverse, which is interesting. That represents Aquarius. Tell me about Judgment, please. 3 of Swords and the 8 of Cups. Wow, I have got goosebumps. I don't know if the camera can pick them up, but like all the hairs on my arms are standing up on end on both sides, and now it's all over the body. Right, we have the Lovers card at the bottom of the deck. Interestingly, another card that represents Gemini. So whilst I'm not even going to pretend that I understand why Gemini energy should be so significant for you right now, I think it is very interesting that in the responses, what we have is ideas of communication or understanding or comprehension or integration on a mental level going on with this 8 of Wands, with this Knight of Swords, somewhat, I guess tangentially with the Lovers as well. But I mean, fucking hell, look at what's going on here. Let's get these in a position where you're able to see it more clearly, because I understand that there's I was looking a little bit messy. So we've got double Gemini energy down here, representing everything that I've already talked about in terms of Gemini, right? But the Knight of Swords is about active communication. But what we need to be really clear about is whether that is internally or externally expressed. There is a difference, and both are incredibly important. So when I say internally expressed, I'm talking about the creative movement of ideas moving around your own head, right? The ability to be able to put things together that you could not, for whatever reasons, see before. And the effect that that has on your psyche, the effect that it has on your world perspective, and certainly in view of the way that it would affect your ideas of reality, right? So we've got exposure to, not necessarily exposure to new ideas, but new ways of putting them together, because the Knight of Swords is about the movement of an idea, right? So if it's within your own head, it's changing the way that you think. If it is externally expressed, then we're talking about communication, not only what you say, but also what you hear from other people. I think the Knight of Swords also has a rather mimetic quality to it. So it's like the idea of something being passed from person to person to person, like a meme. Interestingly, did you know that that started with, oh fuck, what's his name? The chap who wrote The God Delusion, right? He was the one who first coined that as a term, and then it got co-opted into memes. But it's very accurate, right? The movement of memes around the social media sphere is very much Knight of Swords kind of energy, right? It's expressing an idea in a way that can be perceived very, very quickly. Very of the nature of Gemini, right? But then we have the Lovers card, and this is interesting because the Lovers card is, for me, about the exercise of free will. It's about a lot of other things. It's about passive manifestation, which is to say getting into a state of alignment with the universe, God, source, creator, the divine, like, whatever your word is for it. I feel like we're all talking, more or less about the same thing. There's certainly an underlying intelligence that seems to be guiding the development of humankind on a macro scale and our own lives on an individual scale. It also talks about coming together in union and harmony with others, right? But I'm kind of stuck more on this idea of free will. Now, it could be that the expression of your free will is to try and bring some kind of unification between you and another person or another set of people. But I think what's quite interesting about this is the degree to which it's becoming clear that you haven't really had your own free will. You haven't really been exercising your own free will in a way that has been authentic for you. We've talked about this at length, Capricorn, about societal expectations, familial expectations, the kind of shit that we pile on top of ourselves, and where we kind of outsource our value to achievements, where we outsource the value of ourselves to what we do rather than what we are. And I think the last 7 or 8 months has been that process of quite frankly ripping the band-aid off and seeing not how much of your life was a lie. I think that's probably a harsh way to put it, but where your motivations have come from a place that didn't really feel like they were authentically yours. Now you see it, it's almost like you can't unsee it anymore. And so these energies here, where you are integrating perspectives so as to be able to, or even recognizing where you have integrated perspectives that weren't yours, weren't authentically yours, and that has led to a rather corrupted sense of your own free will. Fucking touche. 5 of Swords underneath. The 5 of Swords for me is about the kind of wonky thought patterns where we have a view of reality that doesn't really line up with what is actually really happening. And we plough on regardless because, Capricorn is a sign that endures. And once you believe that you understand the rules of the game, like that's what you're going to do. And the problem is that since Pluto moved into Aquarius, not only have, the rules of the game changed, we're playing an entirely fucking different game. And I'm not sure that everybody's quite worked out what that game is yet. So everything that you thought you knew isn't really doing you any good anymore. And worse than that, it feels like it's a product of something that has deprived you of things like fulfillment, right? So that's our initial starting point. That's where we're coming at the rest of the reading from, because this is the energy that's underpinning not just where you have been recently, but where you will be going in the next few weeks, right? So I start over here and we start with the Fool. Now this is an absolutely beautiful card. It represents a really beautiful energy, but it does have a dark side. I'm not sure that the dark side is as relevant as it could have been before this point, Capricorn, on account of the fact that what we do see is there has been some massive growth occurring for you. So when we talk about the Fool, we talk about essentially the tabula rasa. We're talking about the 0 point where, and I do believe that this is happening across the board, we are getting an opportunity to start life again, but from a point of our own personal principles, where we are autonomous and sovereign, right? And we're exploring the world. And this is a big thing. We're exploring the world with new eyes because the rules of the game don't exist anymore. And we're doing it without a lot of the emotional baggage that we were carrying around before that gave us a very particularly for the sign of Capricorn, right, a very linear view of what life was like, which is to say, I am at A, I want to get to B, and then C, and then D. I'm taking no deviations. I am going to delay any kind of self-gratification. I'm going to move in this very, very linear way that stops me from experiencing the breadth of the human experience, because my worth is bound up in getting to B, and then to C, and then to D, and then to E. So this Fool is almost like a childlike wonder kind of energy that is sweeping through your life. Now it has the space to do so. I'd say, I'm sure I've said this to you before, but Capricorn is given to be one of those signs that kind of ages in reverse. If you've ever met a Capricorn child, you'll see that they're, well, presumably you were one at one point, Capricorn, right? I'm a Capricorn ascendant. They have a quality of being old beyond their years, and there's a seriousness, there's a gravitas to them, there's a depth to them that they don't really share too much, right? Because Capricorns are intensely private, but they worry a lot, and they are very disciplined beyond their years, very focused beyond their years, and they tend to lock in at an early age, because acceptance from the people that they care about comes by way of that, right? Well done, you got an A on your test. Well done, you got into Cambridge. Well done, you got that amazing job. Well done, you got an amazing promotion. It's like all of the Capricorn experiences entrench this idea that your worth was bound up in your achievements, and that being serious was good and being mature beyond your years was good, right? Essentially stripping away the ability of Capricorns, which doesn't come naturally anyway, to just be children, just enjoy, just experience, be free-flowing and fluid, and not at all structured. Capricorns don't like that very much, right? But we seem to have arrived at a place where this energy is now allowing you to play with it, or you're allowing yourself to play with it a little bit. And I think that that's really important, because the inner child, the child part of us, is where our creativity lies. And I think Capricorns are starting to feel that creative movement that is coming alongside seeing the world very, very differently to the way that you've seen it for the last few decades, and the way that you've participated in it in the last few decades. And so with that, there's an accompanying childlike wonder about seeing things that you've seen for such a long time from a very different perspective. And, changing perspectives is a huge part of what is going on here in this reading. Now, we have the Death card and we have the Strength card. The Death card loosely represents endings, but we have to be very careful with that as a term, because what really is an ending? I think it's better to think about the Death card as a broom that moves through our life, that creates space for new things to come in. if you think about your life like a room, there's only so much stuff you can fit in before you can't get to the stuff that's at the back of the room anymore. And it's necessary to have a clear out every now and again, right? And that's the same is true for our lives generally. Like, we don't have friends that we met at nursery that we have until the day that we die. Neither do we go through school with these people and then work with these people and socialize with these people, for example. But on a more abstract level, right, emotions that, you know, formulated a lot of our worldview when we were very, very young, we reach a point of maturity where we see, actually, these are not beneficial to me anymore, right? Because it's a child interpretation, and it may not actually hold any weight when we've got a bit more experience and we can see that the world moves in a different way, right? So the Death card is more like a clearance. It does represent transformation, because it changes. It represents an energy changing from one state into another, and so we have a kind of death and rebirth of self that is represented by death here. And I don't think I have to, I don't think I have to knock on your forehead too much for Capricorns to really understand this, because you've had Pluto moving through your ascendant, if you are a Capricorn ascendant, or over your sun, or over your moon. And Pluto always demands a death and rebirth, right? It's the unpicking of the conditioning. I think if Pluto represents anything, it represents conditioning, actually, because the hard Pluto transits that we will experience at some point on some aspect of our chart is asking us to decondition whatever it is that is making us be afraid of something. And that can be afraid of ourselves. It can be afraid of our vulnerability. It can be afraid of rejection. You know, all of these things play a far greater part in the human psyche than we ever give it credit for, right? So if we are going through a death and rebirth, I think almost fucking consistently at this point, right, over and over again, and we emerge a little bit battered and bruised, but nevertheless a little bit more, just a little bit more than we were before. I think that's what Pluto does, right? Because it's allowing us to access that purer part of us again and again and again. And it's here with the Strength card, which represents growth and personal development, right? There's a strength that develops over time, that comes from an internal place. It's not given to us by way of accolades and achievements. It's like it's very much an internal proposition here. So when we see death and strength show up together, we know that we've been through this death and rebirth process, and we are expanding as a result. Full representing like pure potentiality is saying, we're tapping into something really huge here. Now, the part of this that's fascinating to me is the Ten of Pentacles, which is sitting on the end of it. Now, the Ten of Pentacles is in the Minor Arcana, as all the tens do, represents some kind of completion. The cycle of the tarot runs from the Ace to the 10, or the Ace to the King, or the Page to the King. You know, the tarot is cycles within cycles. So when we have a 10, we understand that something is coming to an end, and that's okay. And we're getting ready to, you know, meet the Ace of Pentacles, which is the next card that comes after the 10. Cycles within cycles within cycles. But the Ten of Pentacles can represent lots of other things too. It can represent business. It can represent your home. It can represent your family. It can represent your actual, you know, your whole building that you live in. It can represent inheritance, because for me it's got this heritage and legacy quality to it, right? What we're seeing here is a snapshot in time where effort and work has been put in to accumulate to such a point that now everybody is reaping the benefits of it, not just, you know, in the gradual acquisition of it, not just in the experience of it right now, but paying it forward. The thing is, though, where it becomes sticky is this idea that there is a completing element to it, right? So whether it's about your job, or whether it's about where you live, or whether it's about your family structure, something here is has completed. And in order for it to, if we want it to, continue to be a part of our life, it must evolve, because otherwise it withers on the vine. And the evolution would be represented by the Ace of Pentacles. But here instead we have the Seven of Pentacles, not an ideal card. We also have the World card at the bottom of the deck, which is confirming the fact that something is coming to an end here, right? It's done its time, it served its purpose, and from here we go on to something else. But this Seven of Pentacles is a slightly tricky card. I think it's very positive, personally, but that's a bit of a hot take, I think. I have a few hot takes when it comes to the tarot. Because for me, the Seven of Pentacles was a card that didn't make sense for a long time for me. I didn't understand why the Seven of Pentacles was where it was. And then the Eight of Pentacles was talking about working very hard, when if you read the little white books of tarot, they go, oh, it's about the harvest. Why would you do the harvest in the Seven of Pentacles and then in the Eight of Pentacles be back to working really, really hard for something? Like, that's not how it works. Now, when the harvest is finished, we go into that slower mode because we're welcoming in the darker part of the year, right? And after staring at the Seven of Pentacles for the longest fucking time, I suddenly realised that what this card was about was not about the harvest. It was actually about a failed harvest. It helped because I was reading about the original coloration of the cards, right? And there's a lot that's been lost in the continuous reprinting of the cards. I think the closest we can get to it is actually the centennial edition of the Rider-Waite, where you see that the leaves on the plant are actually kind of wilting a little bit, and there is this idea that the harvest is not going to be what we wanted it to be. The harvest is not going to be something that is commensurate with the amount of effort that we have put in, and so we arrive at this place now where we understand that we're not going to get the harvest that we want from this, and we are presented with a rather stark choice. Now, I don't think the choice is the important part. The important part is that we are stopping and taking stock, and we are looking around and going, is this actually working? What do I need to do from this point on? Because the suggestion is that there is something that will happen after this. And from that point, you can go, well, you either pull the bush up, start again, clean the soil, do whatever it is that you need to do, cut your losses, or you invest harder, you increase the amount of work that you're going to put in, and you hope that in some way you can salvage what looks to be damaged and withering and frankly just starting to fade away a little bit. But it's the pause right here. So we have a pause, and I do feel like, because one of the other interpretations that I have for the Ten of Pentacles that I didn't mention, I probably should, is that for me it also represents generational karma, generational trauma, right? What is passed on from parent to child. So with all of this in mind, what we understand is that you're looking around at your life and you're like, there are many things that are wrong, and they probably always have been wrong, but you can see them with new eyes now, because you've been through this death but rebirth process, and the energy of the potential of what could be versus what is having much more to do with your thinking now than it has done before. So presented with the issue, understanding that there is a problem, not necessarily quite understanding what it is yet, we then arrive at the Hanged Man in your current energy. Now the Hanged Man is a representation of where we change our perspective entirely. It comes through surrender and voluntary submission to an uncomfortable position, whereby we can see the world upside down, we can see it with new eyes, and we can make connections that we did not make before, right? It's a huge card of changing one's perspective, usually leading to wisdom and illumination. Now, bearing in mind that we have a card that represents a problem here, in the sphere of either your business, your home, your family, your even generational karma, generational trauma. You're recognizing that actually you're rocking quite a lot of this and that needs to change. Not quite sure how to change it. The Hanged Man is saying, like, you're seeing things so very fucking differently now to the way that you've seen it before. It's almost like you've been cracked wide open. And then we have this Eight of Wands, which is about communication, incoming, very swift communication. It's not a Gemini card, it's a Sagittarius card, but it is Mercury in Sagittarius, which is Gemini's ruling planet, right? So this sense of information coming in, information needing to be synthesized is very, very strong right across the board. So we have a change of position that is happening with you, a very different way of seeing the world that's going on right now. And the information just isn't stopping. It's just coming and coming and coming. And I don't think that at any other point in your life you probably would have been able to cope with the level of information that seems to be coming into you. Now, I'm not talking about people sending you emails or stuff like that. I'm talking about insight. I'm talking about creatively putting things together in your head and going, holy fuck, I never saw that before. Like, what the fuck? But we have the King of Swords in reverse. Now, for me, the King of Swords is about the decision-making process. It's not about the processing of information. That belongs to the Queen. The King is about the arbitration. It's about the decision in the moment. With all of the information that we have, making some sort of decision about how we will move forwards or how we see the world or whatever, right? It's a lesser card, a lower card of judgment, if you will. But I'm kind of troubled by the fact that it's in the reverse, because I'm not sure if that means you don't know what to do with all of this information that you've got right now, right? You're like, how am I supposed to make any kind of decision about this? And I would say, had the Queen showed up as well, then that might have bridged the gap a little bit. It's almost like there's a seizing up of, it's just more and more and more. And what the fuck do I do with all of this? I don't know what to change. I don't know what to do. I've been seeing things very, very differently. But how does that translate to what I do next? The King of Swords is very clear about what he thinks. So when he shows up in the reverse, we've got to assume that he's not very clear about what he thinks. And we have the Five of Swords in reverse. That's very, very good, because as we know, we saw it in the upright here. So we know that there's a stabilization of the wonky thought processes that you've had for the longest time. Talk about the King of Swords, please. And we have the Four of Swords at the bottom of the deck. And now we have the Wheel of Fortune showing up. Now this this really intensifies things, Capricorn, if it wasn't intense enough as it was. Because I have, when you read tarot for a long time, there are certain combinations of cards that come up that give you a feeling of something that is more than the sum of its parts, right? The Wheel of Fortune, the Judgment card, these are huge energies on their own. When they start to show up in tandem, things are getting really, really big. Things are getting really, really intense. And I have a trifecta of cards. Any two of them showing up in combination is an escalation, big escalation. And those three cards are the Wheel of Fortune, Judgment, and Justice. When any two of those show up in combination, or if in fact all three show up, which does happen occasionally, we're talking about huge life-changing moments where maybe the synthesis that you are missing in this current moment is all starting to come together, but it's coming together in a way that feels destined. Let's put it that way. Because you're doing all the work here. I can see the amount of work that you're doing, but I also think you're kind of overwhelmed because the information just won't stop, right? And we know that you're already over and over again seeing things so differently, creatively putting things together, but I think you're at a static point where there's not enough synthesis that has occurred because you're doing it so fucking fast, Capricorn. Holy shit. That the entire picture, the coherent picture, hasn't yet emerged yet. It's just a deluge of information. And I think this Four of Swords at the bottom of the deck is probably the key to your salvation at this point, because it's about just getting comfortable with the fact that things are changing. This is not something that traditionally Capricorn is particularly comfortable with, unless they are the ones doing the changing, right? But the Four of Swords for me is a card of healing, first and foremost, but it's a card of cultivating stillness. And I think rather than feeling or contributing to your feeling of overwhelm by feeling that you need to make some sort of decision about everything that you now feel and understand, and all the bits of information that you're synthesizing, it's like, can you hold this in its state of flux, which is what it is at the moment? Can you hold this and just sit with it? Can you just be peaceful with it? And the reason that I say that is because I do feel like events are probably going to start overtaking you very soon, in that delicious way that lets us know that there is an underlying intelligence to the universe, and it does have its beady eye on you. Because moving from the Wheel of Fortune to the Judgment card in August, it does feel like it's amping things up. Like I said, it's kind of aligning you with destiny. Interesting that we should use that same word when we're talking about the Lovers card, alignment, right? It's putting you where you need to be, and the need to make a decision actually isn't something that's here for you yet. We're not. It's not being asked of you yet. August, that's a different ball game. But look at the clarifiers that we have underneath here. Now, the Three of Swords and the Eight of Cups, both kind of difficult cards in their own right. The Three of Swords isn't just about heartbreak. It's not just about pain. There's something. It's a card that I struggled with for the longest time, because I was like, why the fuck would a heartbreak card be swords, when swords is the preserve of the mind and the thinking and rationality and reason and all that kind of thing? Like the Three of Cups. The Three of Swords should somewhere along the line be a Cups card, because we're talking about emotion. And then I pondered on for a bit and I got it. The Three of Swords is information that comes through and spears your emotional bubble. Right, your preconceived notions of everything. The Three of Swords is a non-temporally specific card, in so much as the thing that hurts you might well have happened 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or even 40, 50 years ago. But it is in the moment where your emotions meet the facts that the heart breaks. Not at the time that it happened, because you didn't know about it, right? So what we've got, and this is a Saturn card as well, by the way, what we've got is something that's coming in kind of brutally and popping an illusion about something. Now, all the work that you've been doing so far leads me to think that this is not going to be the thing that hamstrings you. It's not going to cut your legs off and you're just going to be stomping around going, oh my God, I can't survive anymore. I'm not talking about that kind of heartbreak. I think the heartbreak is the synthesis that I've been talking about that was missing over here. It synthesizes here, and it's synthesizing because the universe is organizing itself around you, whilst also subtly turning you, metaphorically speaking, to a point where all of this can come together and you see what you could not see before. And this is why it's really, really important that you just sit with this right now. You're not being asked to do anything, because the universe is doing a lot of things around you, right? You have to get yourself to a place of stillness, so that this moment of synthesis, when it happens in August, and I do feel like it's going to be happening in August, is the point where you recognise what you're being told, you recognise what you've put together, and you realise that it's time to leave some very, very big emotions behind. Whenever we have a card numbered 8, such as this 8 of Cups, like what we're talking about is power, and more specifically, how we reclaim our power. And we reclaim our power in the case of the 8 of Cups by recognizing that something has always been missing. And no matter how long we loiter at this point, this 9th cup, which represents our highest hopes, goals, dreams, aspirations, emotional fulfillment, good emotional management, it's not coming where we are. It can't come where we are. And so the wisdom of this card is, it's time for us to move. It's time for us to reject what is rigid and stable, what we're familiar with, what we've known, and start the process of going off to look at something, look anywhere else for what is going to truly fulfill us than where we are right now, right? It's the movement away. The Judgment card on the top, I think, means that big decisions are going to be made this month. And like I said right at the beginning of the reading, I think you're going to be making decisions that you didn't think in a million years you would be making by the end of August, because you have not only all of the information, but you've synthesized it. And the emotional movement is giving you a freedom that the Fool has very recently started initiating for you. Remember what I said about the minor arcana being the responses. Well, this big energy been battering you. These big energies battering you. This big energy battering you. These ones continuing to do so. Walking away from putting down the emotional burden that you've been carrying for such a long time. Introducing movement in your emotions. I don't know if you're going to be moving house or moving job or any of those kind of things, right? But what I do know is that by the end of August, you're going to be feeling a little lighter. Doesn't mean that it will feel great, because we do have that 3 of Swords there, but at least it's something considerably closer to the truth than you've been working to for the longest time. And the relief of shedding that and giving yourself permission to move in a direction that is represented by the energy of the 9 of Cups rather than the 8 is going to feel like a very big thing indeed. And because you've got so much major arcana energy going on here, there's no doubt in my mind at all that you are being maneuvered in a particular direction. Holy shit, Capricorn. Right, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go and do the extended. So if you want to dig into this a little bit deeper, you're very welcome to join me over there. The links are in the description box. You can join me on Selfie, you can join me on Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not your thing, then that's fine. I just want you to know, I see how intense it is. Then it's going to get a little bit more intense still. But there is a popping point, right? As these swords slide into the emotional bubble, there will be a pop. And it won't necessarily be comfortable, but you have it within you. This is the whole point of the situation. You have it within you to put down the burden and go, I'm going to go look for the 9th cup. I am going to go look for my 9th cup, whatever that is, right? So know that I love you all very, very much. I'll see you soon.